I love Paper Mario. Let's talk about it. This video will be a lot more rambly and less edited than my usual stuff, so let me know how you feel about it. The release of the Thousand Year Door remake still just doesn't feel real to me. Like, Nintendo, are we just going to pretend that we all didn't endure the last 12 years of this series? I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that actually. Before we go any further, here's my tier list of every Paper Mario game. Before I talk about this list, I feel like any discussion of this series prompts these are my opinions. If you like the new games, that's great. If me being snarky about these games upsets you, then maybe this is not the best video for you. We cool? You done writing that comment? Right off the bat, I want to clarify that the reason this tier list is divided by a very large gap is because there's a very large shift in design philosophy starting with Sticker Star, and to fully understand that shift, I'm going to give a little history lesson. Okay, so Paper Mario 64 came out in 2001, a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG, making it a turn-based RPG with timing mechanics. But almost more importantly, it's also a game that sought to give Mario a story. The game was even called Mario Story in Japan. See, for the most part, by 2001, most Mario locations were just obstacle courses to jump through towards a finish line. Mario games were designed around making fun levels, but not narratively interesting ones. In Paper Mario, you don't just go to a ghost house to get a star. You explore a haunted mansion, find out the ghosts are being terrorized by an invincible monster, find out its weaknesses, and then take it down. Despite the overarching story just being Bowser kidnapping Peach again, it's these smaller stories you encounter in every chapter that really makes this game feel alive. In this sense, the Thousand Year Door is, in my opinion, a perfect sequel. It takes every strength of the first game and cranks them up. The battle system has more complexity and options. The chapters got so much weirder and more creative. It truly feels like you never know what the game will throw at you next. I'm not going to talk specifics with this game, because experiencing some of these chapters for the first time and knowing nothing about them is an experience I don't want to take from anyone, especially with the remake making this game so much more accessible. Then we have Super Paper Mario, which is kind of the oddball of this initial trilogy. Somehow the writing in Super Paper Mario goes off the rails even further, featuring chapters that I genuinely can't believe Nintendo allowed to be attached to the Mario branding. You see this guy? He's a weeaboo toy collector who steals your butterfly companion. So you have to get her back by sieging his castle filled with cat-made robots and plastered with anime and manga paraphernalia. But the only way into his room is to be a hot babe. No guys allowed, so you have to switch to Peach in order to play a dating sim boss fight. Please play this game. The gameplay deviates from the established turn-based RPG with timing mechanics and is now a side-scroller puzzle platformer with RPG mechanics. The gameplay is odd, and not my favorite, but honestly, it's generally kind of unintrusive, and everything surrounding it is genuinely so fun and creative that I really don't mind it that much. In my opinion, these three games are some of the most fun and creative games Nintendo has ever made. There's a clear progression in how much Nintendo let these developers get away with, as every game seems to just up the ante on how wild they can make their chapters. It's with the release of Sticker Star where this design shifts for the worse. Paper Mario Sticker Star is actually one of the first games I'd ever gotten excited for. After playing the original trilogy in elementary school, there was already a new game in this series around the corner. Lucky me. I mean, I would come home from school every day and get excited just to watch the trailer again. The only other game I remember being this excited for, ironically, was Mario Party 9. Somehow, I was born at the perfect time to be burned by two series simultaneously. See, Paper Mario Sticker Star might be one of the worst video games I've ever played. In Paper Mario Sticker Star, you no longer have chapters and stories, you have worlds and levels. We have progressed back to Mario jumping through locations to find a finish line, but the key difference from this game and any of Mario's other platformers is that it's not a platformer, which means it's not fun to jump through. It's a turn-based game, and not even an RPG. See, Paper Mario Sticker Star made the brilliant decision to bring back turn-based battling. And a lot of people were excited about this because a lot of people really didn't like the gameplay shift in Super. But there's a catch. Now, attacks are attached to one-time consumables, stickers, and your only reward for winning a battle is more stickers and coins, for which you can use to buy more stickers. Which begs the question, if I have to use stickers in a battle, and the only thing I stand to gain is more stickers, then why should I battle? Paper Mario Sticker Star does not have a good answer for this, but at the end of the day, it's a handheld game. The swap to levels instead of chapters makes sense in like a pick up and play kind of way, and the lack of any original stories and characters could also be chalked up to simplifying a formula for a portable audience. At the end of the day, I don't hold that much against this game for trying something different. Paper Mario Color Splash might be the worst video game I've ever played. On paper, this game is probably better than Sticker Star, but on principle, I hate almost everything it stands for. Paper Mario Color Splash was not trying to be the best game it could. It was instead a stubborn game focused on doubling down and fixing the broken systems of Sticker Star. And it doesn't even do that. The set pieces and levels are a bit more interesting and varied than Sticker Star's grass, desert, forest, snow, but they're still levels. There isn't any memorable stories to be told in just one level. I played through this entire game and I only really remember one sequence of levels where you're sailing with a pirate crew to different islands, and that's kind of it. The rest of the game just blends together as a mush of jumping through levels to get to the finish line. Somehow, this game managed to make Sticker Star combat worse, because now instead of stickers, you have cards, and since they're cards and not stickers, you can't have them displayed in an easy-to-read menu like a sticker book. No, these are cards, they belong in decks, but since this is a deck, you have to sift through all of your cards to find the right one. But then you're not done yet, you have to hold each individual card for 2 seconds to paint them in, then you have to hit lock in, and then you swipe them up to the TV, where you have to wait a few seconds, and then you can do action commands. So they somehow added 3 extra steps to their turn-based battle system? Why? This genuinely makes any combat in this game feel like a punishment, as again, you get nearly nothing for winning. You do get little points to upgrade your paint capacity, but again, why would I need more paint if I can just avoid the battles anyway? Not to mention, paint is never really a resource you run low on in this game. That means this should be the perfect sequel I praised the 1000-Year Door as. They took the same concept and tried to iterate and improve it, but it's just missing so much of the heart and the creativity. When I look back on this game, I genuinely struggle to remember any of the interesting parts. I can remember each and every chapter of the first 3 games so distinctly, but this game just has nothing for me to latch onto. No set pieces unique enough, no original characters with any personality to be found, and a battle system I want to forget. Anyways, Paper Mario the Origami King is one of the worst video games I've ever played. I feel like I'm being gaslighted when people talk about this game online. This game was touted by many to be a semi-return to form for the Paper Mario series, and no. Partners are back. You get NPCs that follow you around for 1 chapter each, you do not get to build a party, and the NPCs do not have abilities for overworld puzzle solving. They are generally there for narrative reasons only. They do next to nothing in battle. The writing! When I say I love the writing in the original 3 games, I'm talking about characters, world building, scenario, story. When someone says they love the writing in Color Splash and Origami King, they're talking about witty one-liners from generic NPCs. Yes, I know about the gun control toad in Color Splash. Look, this one says his wife left him. There is some funny writing in these games, but it's disingenuous to imply that these are even remotely the same thing. Badges are back. There is no flexibility in loadouts. These are just strict buffs, and you always equip the best ones you have. But this game finally has chapters again, no more levels. The chapters in this game, except for the last one, have so little going on. These areas are nice looking. There are some interesting set pieces, but again, there's no narrative thread or characters to utilize them effectively. So many of these places feel so empty. This abandoned theme park, this big empty desert, this big empty ocean. The only driving force in these chapters is that thing we need to do is here. Let's follow it. In essence, jump through a level to a finish line. Oh, but there's no more consumables in the battle system. So now, in order to attack enemies in this game, you first need to solve a sliding ring puzzle to lock enemies into one of 2 different configurations. There's no strategy. And then you select the attack that correctly attacks that configuration, jump for a straight line, hammer for a square, no thought or strategy. And then you do one of 2 different action commands, no variation. And then, if the enemies are still alive, you need to block their attacks that do seemingly random amounts of damage and sometimes take like 15 seconds. But if you want to skip that part and kill the enemies in 1 turn, you're in luck because there's consumables with higher attack that you pretty much need to use to keep your attack stat on par with enemy health pools. But after finishing a battle where you have to do all that, you're rewarded with coins that you can use to buy more consumables. You see where this is going? The Origami King combat is somehow slower and less cohesive than the messes we had before it. At this point, it almost feels spiteful. What does not having any sort of combat progression system do to benefit your game? What does refusing to add original characters and storylines add to your game? Why does every new game need to be about some sort of paper thing instead of its own original story? For me, someone who played the original 3 games and remembers them so fondly, this spite hangs over this whole game. It's a game I feel like I could have enjoyed if it wasn't so stubborn about things that clearly were. It even dampens my enjoyment of the 1 chapter I feel like has some of the same spark as the original trilogy. I guess spoilers for Origami King if you care. But in chapter 5, Bowser's castle crashes into a floating spa in the sky. The toads who work there forced all of Bowser's minions to work for them to pay off the damages they caused. In this chapter, you have to travel to each bath to restore Bowser Jr. The setup is interesting. There is a narrative here. Bowser Jr. and Kamek make fun traveling companions and, get this, are well-written characters. And while I enjoyed this chapter, I just couldn't help but wonder, why wasn't the rest of the game like this? Why was the chapter right before just sailing through an empty ocean looking for islands? Sorry for the rant. I just miss this series. The spite of Color Splash and Origami King are what made me believe we would never get a new Paper Mario like the original trilogy. The way these games so easily forego general intuitive game design just to be different from Thousand Year Door made me give up any hope. The way I and many other fans have felt entirely ignored by the developers made me think that one of my favorite series was just different and no longer for me. I don't hate these games because they're different. Super Paper Mario proves that to me. These games are just a completely separate entity from what I used to love in theming, writing, identity, and gameplay. But then it happened. Out of nowhere. Suddenly, it was back? I didn't actually watch the direct where this game got announced, and when people told me about it, I kind of didn't really react. I thought it was cool, but I wasn't sure I wanted to buy and play Thousand Year Door again. I mean, I've already beaten it 3 times. It wasn't until I watched that first trailer for myself that it really sank in. Seeing all the creativity and soul that had been absent for 17 years on full display. The battle system seemingly intact, even the art style faithfully recreated. It felt like we were so fucking back. I found myself watching that trailer again and again. I got that excitement again. I had to remind myself it was real. And it still didn't feel real. And then I played it, and it's here, unashamedly. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is back. So, what comes next? This is the question that haunts me. By all means, letting the Thousand Year Door out of its cage has to mean something, right? How do you release Origami King? then Thousand Year Door, then go back to Recycle ROM. Then again, living through the past 12 years of this series, it's hard to imagine any other trajectory. If I made the choices, I would want to make something that iterated on Thousand Year Door. Use the battle system as a baseline, but find ways to add complexities. I want weird and wacky chapters. I want Mario places he should never be. Make a game that surprises me, new, original characters to guide us through the narrative that is not related to Paper in the slightest. Paper should be an art style, not the story. The pessimist in me says, a remake is just a remake. It has no influence on the future of this series. Interviews with the Paper Mario team have kind of indicated that they are intent on keeping Paper Mario's identity with the Paper gimmicks. What else is there to do with Paper? Recycling would be my guess. It fits that kind of darker vibe they've been going for with like sucking out the color in Color Splash and folding people up in Origami King. With this, people would be turned into like amalgamations of their former self or like, I don't know, paper straws. But it could really be anything. This series hasn't exactly been the most creative, like collaging, scrapbooking, wiping my ass because these games are all shit. But I don't make the choices, and I feel that the history of Paper Mario is pointing towards something entirely different. Paper Mario 64 established a formula, Thousand Year Door iterated, Super maintained core aesthetics and vibes while switching things up. Sticker Star established a formula, Color Splash iterated, and Origami King maintained core aesthetics and vibes while switching things up. If the story of these two trilogies mean anything, it means that Paper Mario might not take either of these established tracks. I think the most likely outcome is that Paper Mario will reinvent itself again. In what form, it's hard to say, but I think with the release of Thousand Year Door, it's almost a sure bet that we'll get a return to original character designs, and at least a story that is a little more involved. I think the existence of this remake is proof that Nintendo is finally listening to the criticisms and complaints from the last 12 years. In fact, some of the advertising for this remake seems to parody that. It would be so bizarre for new Paper Mario games going forward to return to generic copy-paste Toads and generic area designs. Regardless of how anyone feels about Thousand Year Door as a game, this game has a lot of objective strengths narratively and aesthetically over the new games that would just be odd to not utilize going forward. I think it's likely, though, we won't see a return to turn-based RPG battles. While I personally want it, this series, since Super, has been trying so hard to be an action-adventure game, while also still trying to be an RPG, kind of, for some reason. We need to pick one or the other, and I think especially with how they were playing around with the ideas in Origami King, we might actually get another real-time battle game. Is it possible we'll see a full return to form? Sure, but I think I've been burned one too many times to hope for that, and real-time battles in some capacity feels like the trajectory that the modern games were heading anyway. So these are my thoughts on where I think the next Paper Mario game will go. I think the next Paper Mario game will get a lot of influences from Thousand Year Door, narratively and aesthetically. But instead of a turn-based RPG, I think we're also gonna try maintaining more of like real-time action-adventure style influence from both trilogies to create something completely new that hopefully fully captures the creativity and heart that made me fall in love with this series. What do you think about the future of Paper Mario? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let's just like talk about Paper Mario down there. I love the first 3 games so much and had to hold myself back from making the script even longer by praising them for pages on end. This remake coming out actually felt like some sort of retribution. I felt so wronged by this series for most of my life, and it's finally back. Anyways, I plan to release a Thousand Year Door challenge run video in the near future, but let me know if you want any more Paper Mario content or just rambly, low edit stuff like this in general. That's enough from me. Subscribe.